Hello, good morning. Welcome along to a very special Serious Social Live today. So I'm going to be joined by some guests this morning as we look back at what was forecast to happen on social media in 2021 and hopefully point you towards where you need to be going for 2022. Were last year's recommendations accurate? Did you get the correct insight and direction that you needed? If we had our time again, what would you do differently? Where were the standout successes? What does that mean for 2022 recommendations? And what's going to scale? What boardrooms should be discussing? And how do we set ourselves up to absolutely smash it in 2022? Now, these are just some of the questions we'll be addressing this morning. And to help me answer those, I'm delighted to say we're going to be joined by social media royalty this morning. We've got the Queen of IF and our Queen of Insights, Katie Howe, CEO, and our Duchess of Delivery, Belle Lawrence. And if that makes you guys royalty, I guess I'm the court jester, and I've done my best to dress appropriately this morning.
Love it.
We've got a lot to get through. I've spent some time going back over all the predictions that were made sort of this time last year. And I went and had a look at everything that was out there from publications, influencers, bloggers, even other agencies. And in no particular order, this is what was put out there. Live streaming will increase, social marketplace demand to grow. There'll be increased need to humanize brands. Privacy and data measurement concerns will stay. CSR demand will increase. Insta stories and Snap stories to gain popularity. Facebook and Instagram to continue to perform well. That was in context of their bans in China and India. Social commerce to expand, with Insta and Facebook being used to sell products using shoppable posts and Instagram storefronts. Video content to dominate. New tech adoption to be at an all-time high, with incremental demand for augmented reality and virtual reality. An increase in the use of social media for customer service. Now, here's the thing. I did some digging into those, and every recommendation had the same thing. It was a tactical recommendation, a matter-of-fact statement framing potential demand for a tactic. There was very little insight and direction around why and how brands utilize those offerings. Do you both know what our standout recommendation from a year ago? So a year ago, when we were forecasting from October through to December last year, what were we recommending to people? Can either of you remember? No? Silence? Strategy. We were banging the drum about strategy and having a strategy that was linked to corporate goals that helped people understand where they should be, what platforms they should be on and what they shouldn't, how they create content, what made good social content, how you measured it, and how you took boardrooms on the journey. Here is my long-winded question, Katie. Did enough brands start with strategy, or did all that get bypassed as we hit this race for the bottom line?
Good question. And as you know, I speak to a lot of brands on a regular basis, somewhere between 4 and 5 a week. So I get a really good picture from both consumer and B2B. And I'd say one of the really interesting, I am seeing an uptick in people thinking about strategy, wanting to do strategy, slight uptick, but it isn't ubiquitous. And I think there are 3 issues with this. The first is most people are mired in the day-to-day, so they just are not looking up. The second is we still, most of us in many of the, maybe not the top tier, but the many brands, we have a leadership team that doesn't believe in social, doesn't understand social, and keeps blocking social in some fashion or another. And the final point, of course, is the short-termism, which means that people aren't looking beyond the next month or 2, I guess. They're just doing.
Do you think that's a byproduct of COVID recovery? You know, boardrooms kind of racing to get revenue in, or is it just a lack of understanding at that leadership level that you rightly flag?
At all levels, I would say the challenge we have is that social media is a bid paid for advertising platform in the main, and what that means is that everybody thinks of it like search, like performance. but it misses a trick. And so what happens is, if all you think about is that social is your performance channel, and if you put your product up there, somebody will buy it. And it works to a certain extent. Of course it does, because of media consumption. Just the consumption volume means that it works a little bit. But what has happened is that total focus on performance means that nobody looks beyond the next month, 2 months, 3 months. They just don't think about their positioning, their brand. It's in my view, it's the worst kind of marketing for social. Is the worst, and it's such a waste.
It's interesting you see that with new business. Belle, I know you're involved in all the pitching we do, and as I said at the top, you very much supported by a brilliant team. You're responsible for all of our client delivery. Just how prevalent is this confusion, do you think, around people thinking social is an extension of search?
Quite prevalent, but I think it's kind of worse than that in some cases, and there are two ways people can get this mixed up. Where it's thought of as another form of PPC and kind of bundled off to people who are used to that performance metric, maybe a search agency or something like that, there's a real lack of understanding about the user behavior, about people's behavior, human behavior, really, because paid is often used when a person has already done some research. They kind of have an idea of what they're looking for. They might even be ready to buy. So it's right down here in the funnel. So you get a good bid strategy and you're fine, you're golden. But that is not where social sits. Like Katie said, there will be some through from social, but the majority of people are on social because they want to find connection and they want to be entertained, and it's a distraction from their life, or they're reaching out to find something new. So a bid strategy is not the thing that's going to make social work for you. You have to work a bit harder than that. And in the opposite case, you'll find social isn't connected to any of the other marketing channels or the sales process in some cases at all. And it can be a total afterthought and a place to stick a meme or an announcement about your opening hours, some kind of notice board, if you will. And to be honest, the user has moved on from that. Yes, it can be useful. A meme can be entertaining. Your opening hours are useful, but we as a human race are now using social for example, our primary news source, or we're using it, spending more time on there than watching TV, than reading newspapers in some demo groups. So like Katie said, I totally agree. If you're not looking at how you're engaging in that channel and you're just kind of sticking an ad on it, you're really missing out, to be honest.
So you really need that strategy to help you understand purpose, not just by vertical, but purpose of content, purpose of message, purpose of audience. And I bet they're all different purposes. I bet it's not going to be one overarching thing. We talk a lot in digital about, we kind of lurch from one trend to another. And what I mean by that, we'll see optimized websites pop up. We'll see a new social channel pop up. There seems to be something of the moment. One of the questions I wanted to ask you both is whether you think social media has become a bit of a bandaid. And what I mean by that is, brands know they've got a lot to fix, and they probably know the time and cost behind elements of it, particularly to your customer journey point, Belle. It's just easier to put a bit more social content out, isn't it, than fixing a website?
It can be. I mean, social isn't new anymore. It's still new, but it's not new enough to just kind of test it out and add that on. And you do have to think about it a little bit. And to go back to Katie's sort of short-termism point, you can't just stick a bit of social out and hope that that's going to be the way to do it, in the same way that you can't, as a brand, run a sale every week. So your customers come to expect when your prices are going to lower, and then they don't trust you when the prices go higher. And you kind of lose that effect of brand loyalty, brand trust. You'll end up with dissatisfied people, and kind of worse than dissatisfaction, the user doesn't know who you are. And then worse than that, they think you don't know who they are and why they were following you in the first place. So you kind of lose all traction and it becomes a big waste of time.
I also think it circles back to your first point, CJ, which is it's a bit like painting a very rusty bucket, which is it looks great for about 3 days. and then the rust pushes it off. Because fundamentally, if there's no strategy and no plan, then no matter how much you tart it up, it's still lipstick on a pig. You know, it's still that bit which is sitting out there, which is that you have no people don't know what you stand for. And this, you know, it's a huge challenge that people are just using social. It's the low barrier to entry. I always moan about this. There is, you know, so everybody thinks they can do social because everybody can be on social. Not quite the same with TV advertising or out of home, because you can't do it yourself, not unless you're a graffiti artist. You're not putting posters up, you know. But with social, everybody can do it. So everybody is an expert, except nobody is. And that's the problem, because nobody's thinking about this in anything other than a tactical way. And that would be the thing that I would hope to see through 2022, is that people realize there is actual value in social and that they want to move forward with that.
I guess it's worth saying a lot of this opinion that we harbour at IF, that isn't just based on years of experience. It's working closely with the platforms and algorithm changes which seem to be happening all the time. Do we need to put more content out into feed, less content? Can we? I remember 4 years ago when we won for the X Factor, lastminute.com, best use of social media advertising, we had 125 concurrent ad sets running. If you try and put 125 ad sets out now, you get banned by the platform. The point being, in a very short space of time, a success which smashes it over here can very quickly become a reason why you get banned from the platform. Algorithm changes, you need to go with it. Bill, this strikes me as almost an impossible job for brand marketers then. If you've got pressures from the board to deliver money because we need to aid our COVID recovery, you've got changing algorithms which you probably haven't got insight around, you've got a whole list of tactics that are going to be the great white hope to get you cut through. If you haven't got that strategy, that's got to be a confusing landscape to navigate for brand marketers, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think having a strategy is like having this little thread of we know what we're doing. We've got this approach. It doesn't mean that we know how many posts we're going to put out on Instagram. It means much more than that. What's our general approach going to be? How are we going to talk to people? How are we going to continue to engage with them? If you have that right, then whatever the tactic is that you need to change, however you need to adapt, you can do that because you understand the real key goal running underneath it.
Let's talk content for a moment, Katie, because obviously content has a big impact in what you do tactically. We've been very much banging the drum about a philosophy that you personally created and took to market for us. Breaking the social boring. What is it and why is it so important?
Right. Well, I've got some stats for you, right? So this year, global ad spend on Facebook grew 43% year on year. TikTok is expected to supersede 1.5 billion users. And all the brands I'm speaking to are not just competing with their competition. They're not just competing in category. They're competing for the attention of the consumer with this massive volume of content. And that content can come from creators. It can come from the press. It can be the football scores. It can be the weather, you know. And yet we still have brands that insist that their Instagram grids need to look so pretty and they have to look so, and I'm very frustrated by this because it goes back to really old-fashioned marketing, which is, you know, you don't want wallpaper advertising. You don't want to invest any time or any money in content that actually doesn't appeal or attract the attention of your audience. There is no way you would pay for a TV ad that didn't actually look at the audiences. You wouldn't put it in the wrong place. Do you see what I mean? I just don't understand the thinking behind this, where what we do is we start with the format, we start with the channel, we start with the format first. And I'm always sitting there going, well, no, where's the audience? But who cares? You don't have to be on this channel. You don't have to do it this way. So I think it was very much born out of frustration that there are real challenges. And let me explain. It's not just the brands with one or two people in their marketing teams. It's the brands as well with big, massive marketing teams. And there is an absolutely glorious bit of research. I'm going to put the link in comments in a sec from Contagious, which shows on Twitter over the last year how increasingly all the brands are getting homogenous in their tone of voice, their approach. They're all sounding the same. But we want, the first rule of marketing is, how can you be distinctive? How can you separate yourself? How can you be who you are? And that I'd say that there's some really important fundamentals to breaking the social boring. The first is you need to get attention out in the first couple of seconds, because people are just scrolling. And so, I mean, TikTok, I think, has made us scroll faster, to be honest with you. The second is that whatever you're talking about, saying, presenting, showing, whatever you're dancing, has to be memorable. Because that is, I mean, whether you're FMCG or you're a B2B brand, if nobody can remember who you are and what you stand for, then you're forever going to be marketing. Do you know what I mean? You're just forever going to have to be pushing against a shut door. And so that brings me on to that bit, which is, you know, you have to build what you are and what you stand for and brand in order to benefit from the longer term, to get a snowball effect on your performance. And if all you do is you're just doing a little bit, it's a bit like going to the gym once a month. You know, for that one day you got fitter, the next day you can't walk. But by the time you get around to doing it again, a month later, you're at the beginning. And that is what performance marketing is for me, and why I find that the missing piece is brand. Sorry, that was a real rant.
I love it, absolutely love it. And I think there's a couple of quotes which we might be seeing appearing online over the coming days. All seriousness though, Val, there's a lot of valid points here. And if we go back to that full list of tactics that was surfaced as recommendations a year ago, clearly there is a lot of thought that needs to go into how the content's created, who we're talking to, is that the right message? And if so, how do we carry it? And that's even before, as Katie was saying, you've chosen the tactic to deploy on. That just all points back to having a proper strategy and a roadmap. And what are we doing by channel? What are we doing by messaging?
Yeah, having a bit of a plan. It sounds really simple, but understanding what the audience care about and what they value the most means that they will engage with you. So, you know, talking about going live as we are here, if we hadn't had a little think beforehand about what we maybe might talk about, then this is just going to be a load of waffle that people are going to switch off from, because, I mean, they might all also anyway, I don't know. But, you know, they're not going to get the value out of it. So at best, they go, oh, I'm not going to watch this, I'll switch it off now. At worst, they think this lot are talking rubbish and I'm never going to come back. So, you know, there's a real danger that if you're going to choose something like live streaming or doing some stories or doing some big piece, that if you haven't thought about whether your audience will actually care what you're about to say, then you're going to run into trouble, and it could have real sort of bad long-lasting effects. At the worst, lack of reach. At the, you know, you're not going to get any value out of having gone live in the first place, or whatever the tactic is.
Katie, are we at an age where we need social media consultancy? And what I mean by, I don't mean for marketing teams now, that's a given, they engage agency. Board level, even investor level, consultancy around the role of social, what it can deliver, but how it has to be structured to deliver those fabled results. Has that become a necessity?
I think it has always been there, and I think maybe it's me, because our roots have always been in being very sensible and grown up about social, because it doesn't matter whether it's social media or marketing, should be considered as a fast way, as the only way to grow a business, basically, whether it's word of mouth, whether it's advertising on TV. Marketing is about growing your business or making your product attractive. And so it's weirdly about going back to fundamentals. What I think is missing is that kind of fallen over our own feet in digital. In this obsession with data, we've fallen over our own feet, and we've just suddenly gone really obsessed with the end game. You know, it's like saying I'm going to have a holiday to Italy because the only reason I want to go to Italy is because I want ice cream. It's kind of like misses the point of everything else that's in Italy. You know, it's just focusing on this one thing. And so I'm very frustrated by it, and because we need our boards to understand marketing. It's absolutely fundamental to growth. And tell me one board member of the board that doesn't care about growth.
Well, I think your rant has gone down rather well. You can see that comment on the screen at the moment. We will continue to shout it as loud as we possibly can for you. I don't want this to come across as a criticism for brand marketers, because as we know, they are caught in a challenging scenario. But I thought, Belle, I know we can't mention the brands for a few weeks yet, but I thought it was really interesting that we've got a household travel brand that pretty much everyone watching this would know who we're working with. Resounding success, 20 years, year-on-year growth and success. And they're grown up enough to ask themselves all of these questions to make sure they're future-proofing what they're doing, not just for the next couple of years, but the next decade. If an uber successful brand that has been making a lot of money without exceptional social is seeing the value and potential in this, surely more brands have got to follow suit and start asking these grown-up questions of their board and their direction. This is a no-brainer, right?
It's got to be, yeah. It seems perhaps that larger brands who maybe are in a strong market position, as you said, they're doing well, but they maybe haven't locked down their strategy or what have you. Maybe they don't need to do it. Maybe they could sit on their laurels, and it's a luxury to be able to look at this in detail. But actually, it's not a luxury. Anyone can decide to do something well if you're going to bother doing it at all, right? And I think that's where it comes from, that they not only understand the value of what they've already done to get to their successful position, but that they can't rest on their laurels, and no one can, and you have to keep moving forward. So hopefully we'll see more of that from brands, looking ahead and making those plans in the coming year.
Because those tactics we read out at the start, there are some tactics that we advocate ourselves using, but it's got to be done in the right fashion, at the right time, to the right audience. And then you get the success, the data, the returns, which takes businesses on an incremental journey, right?
Mm.
Okay. Yeah. Katie, I've been holding back this question for you. I know you've been dying to answer it, but I wanted to hold it back because I thought it naturally took us into forecasting next year. I know we've been talking the need of strategy. Let's talk about social commerce for a moment. I know it's something really close to your heart. Where are we at? Just how important a conversation is this? Are enough boardrooms aware of it? What does 2022 hold for us?
Yeah, I think this is going to be big. And after saying social isn't just about performance, but it is. So I'm just about to contradict myself completely. It is, but not in isolation. Social. We wrote a social commerce report at Immediate Future. I think it might be 11 years ago, which is how can you make this out? Now, all the platforms have tools and technology that helps us do it even better. So a couple of things that have changed that I think are going to make a difference in 2022 is that consumers are adopting social commerce. So a little bit of insight here. Visa says 1 in 4 online purchases are made via an interaction with social. 79% from Gen Z and 50%, sorry, I've been to the dentist this morning, I can't quite speak. 55% of Gen X are prompted to buy through social media. I mean, that's amazing. Look at the power mostly in the palm of your customer's hands. So already brands are beginning to pick up on this, and we're anybody who listened to my live stream a couple of weeks ago with Dominica Delito from Emerging Communications will have heard this. China is definitely leading the way on this with its work in Alibaba and in particular live stream shopping. But don't think that isn't happening here. So we've got, Clarence ran a pilot with amazing conversion on a live streaming show of 30%. 30% conversion to sale. Clark's, Nordstrom, we've had the TikTok made me buy it trend, and apparently social shopping is set to reach $3.37 trillion dollars, sorry, by 2028. But it's always a but when it comes to Katie. The thing is, this is not about putting your products and slapping them on social. This is about really planning. You don't just go on live stream. You have to be entertaining. You have to be as thoughtful as they are on QVC, because QVC is actually very thoughtful. They build personalities. They build that whole part where people enjoy watching it. Live streaming needs to be very similar. So that's one element, which is the content needs to be deeper and more thoughtful than chucking up the product. You need customer journey mapping, which is where are people going? So one of the things that I thought was really interesting from Clark's, I think said it might be Nordstrom, said that one of they got an uplift in sales, but people didn't want to leave the channel till the live stream was over because they had famous people on it. So there's that. And I think there's also the element of omni-channel, which is you may see the sale come up because your search demand goes up. So measurement and omni-channel. And then finally, it's attracting them in the first place, because unfortunately on social media, there are lots of naughty people on social media, lots of little online stores that are not maybe as ethical or have morals, let's put it that way, who are selling you stuff. Martin Lewis is forever banging the drum about his face appearing in ads, for instance. The reality is that if you're going to do social commerce, then you also need to build trust and credibility at the same time, particularly if you're an unknown brand or it's a new product, because unfortunately our filter has come on now as consumers, and we're filtering out anything we don't trust, we don't believe will give us good customer service, or will just, snaffle our credit cards away. So yes, you can tell it's another thing I'm quite passionate about.
Bill, what else do you think is going to be key for 2022? I suspect we're going to hear you say strategy, but what's going to be a key call out for next year?
Yeah, it has got to be strategy. I guess I would call us strategy and maybe planning addicts at IF, and we can't let it go. It will never go away for us, but definitely for brands. The strategy and having that plan, I mean, at least an idea of where you're going, is going to help you get to that path. A little bit like Katie's gym analogy earlier on. If you haven't had a look at the map of what the address is that you're going to and how many roundabouts there are, and when you turn left, you're going to be a bit stuck. The sat-nav can do it for you, and the agencies can do it for you. So there is that element of, if you are struggling internally, then have a look elsewhere. Engage people who can help and who do have the time. And as I mentioned earlier, having that strong thread underneath will allow you to be more reactive in the day-to-day and maybe have a bit more fun, because I think people want to return to that next year. They want to return to seeing social as a place where you can be entertained, you can enjoy, you can have fun. It's been a tough couple of years. So I think we're already seeing that in some of our clients, because they're ready to lock their strategy down. That's kind of what they're coming to us for. And then they're going to come out the gates fast next year. We've spent a few months working on strategy. Now we're kind of itching to go into January, February, whatever the next big thing is, whatever the next big platform is, because we understand where we're going.
While I've got you, I want to talk TikTok. As one of the few people in the agency who's gone viral on TikTok themselves, you're clearly the authority. You should go and look up the content. It's amazing. But where are we with TikTok? It's entertained us a lot as users. It's promised a lot from a brand perspective. Has that been realised, or is it still a bit of a great white hope, or is it just another one of those platforms that promises a lot, doesn't really deliver for a brand? Snap, for example.
Well, first, I don't think 220,000 views is viral, but it was all right. I was pretty pleased. But no, I think one of the options I think you were just mentioning there is that unlocked potential, to be honest. I think TikTok has come out of the gates fast, and they have loads of opportunities. They're also developing things all the time. They're developing their ads platform. They're developing their influencers platform. They're really going for it. So it is pretty hard to keep up. So most brands are really still only dipping their toes in and kind of trying it out here and there, because it's not surprising, because there's a lot to learn, and you do need to have a good idea of what you're going to do on there, and to make it valuable. You can't just throw it into the mix overnight, because unless you've got, you're lucky enough to have a sort of natural TikTok star in your midst. And I'm thinking about Heather Loather, who was the girl who was singing musical songs at her supermarket job, and she's now in a musical, so she's done pretty well out of it. But I think the supermarket did all right as well. But if they're lucky, it doesn't always happen that way. So you do need to dedicate some time to planning and executing content that works, not just for the audience, because it's audience first, but also for the channel, because that does have a lot of specific nuances of exactly how to upload content, exactly how to decide which sound to work with, and decide which hashtags, and get people to engage with you. So you kind of need to have a plan. We always say that. But with TikTok and any newer channel, actually, the biggest thing, you need to be prepared, not afraid to test and learn, and not worry about something flopping, and figure it out as you go through. You just won't know overnight until you try it, really.
It's really good advice. It's probably one of the reasons why we end up talking a lot about Fujitsu. We've been live streaming for that brand for approaching 4 years. Very much a first mover for a B2B brand to do it. They had the courage to allow us to try it, and very quickly saw the results. But it was done in a structured and considered fashion. What do I think we're going to see in 2022? I really want to see more people availing of the opportunity with live streaming, but there has to be a big brand narrative there. You have to have an understanding about the purpose of why you're doing it. If it's thought leadership, how are you making your wider workforce genuine thought leaders and getting them involved in it? Are you packaging and distributing content that matters to the audience? Or are you getting caught up in the latest sales initiative and the vernacular around a proposition you've got to push? Credential videos will never play on live. Go and solve problems for people. They'll listen to you all day long. The one bit I would urge caution around, I get why people are talking about VR and augmented reality, but unless you've got oodles of cash to be a first mover, it's going to be fraught with a lot of pitfalls. You might be better just holding back, letting the issues sort themselves out before you then go and test and try. I point to live streaming as a case in point. It's been around for years and people still haven't got to grips with it. We just had a question come in, and this is a really interesting one. And Belle, I'm going to put this to you because I know you've been doing this work with a client recently. How important are hashtags going to be in 2022, especially on a platform like Instagram that changes its algorithm every now and then? Great question.
Yeah, I think the thing about hashtags is that then I don't think they're going to go anywhere. I think it's still going to be a good way to engage a community, to signpost what you're talking about, and increase discoverability. But what has happened in the past is that Instagram, or whoever it is, have maybe allowed there to be an idea of what the algorithm is and how it works for hashtags. And then, of course, everyone follows it and goes, oh, it's got to be 30, or it's got to be between 8 and 12, or it's got to have this one in. Truly, the point about hashtags is that they've got to be relevant. You probably do want a brand hashtag in there because it's a good way of reminding people who you are and allows them to engage with you, to follow you. But you want then the relevant things. You want something that is relevant to the sector that you're in. You want something that is broadly recognized as much as possible. And then you perhaps want to signpost a couple of really niche specific things so that, people understand what it is, what the content is that you're putting out there. So I don't know if there's going to be a massive change in the way that Instagram use hashtags or Twitter or anybody else. They may well change the algorithm, but I think if you're picking relevant, useful hashtags in the first place, you shouldn't need to worry about how many there are.
Well, it's encouraging that questions are coming in this late. People
Yeah.
are watching, which is a lovely thing.
I love the next question, CJ.
I was going to say, that's got to be one for you, Katie,
Yeah,
right? Because
absolutely.
you've been all over this. So hopefully Declan de Silva Pereira, we've just answered your question on hashtags. Connect with Bella afterwards if you want some more insight around that. Miles Phillips has asked, we said, I agree with your views on TikTok. The brands that work are the ones who get social and provide entertainment over selling. Perfect. I have a question for you. What are your views on NFTs and how important will they be to brand in the next few years? Casey, you've been looking at this. What do you think?
Yeah, non-fungible tokens. Yeah, I'm super interested in this. I follow, and if you don't follow her, Miles, follow Zoe Scammon on Twitter. I can after the event, I'll go dig out her Twitter handle and pop it in the comments on LinkedIn. But I think there are two aspects to this. The first is that brands who are getting it right on social are also getting deeper content and more collaborative content. You see partnerships with creators, partnerships with other brands, and they're building almost, programs that are deep content, at which point there is value in the content itself, let alone the marketing, which allows for NFTs to play a part in it. But actually, I think that in the short term, maybe next year, we're going to see NFTs play in the creator side, where there will be licenses sold to use what creators create, which is this burgeoning evolution of the influencer into the creator. And I think that is possibly the bit that I'm most excited about. Because I think that opens up masses of opportunities for there to be financial reward for those people who are extraordinarily creative.
Outstanding. Well, look, if you've got more questions, do connect with us afterwards. We'll happily talk to you about this. And if we've piqued your interest around the importance of planning, you want insight around how to start taking boardrooms on a journey, you even want to talk informally about how to go about that, we are more than happy to pick up the conversation with you. If you do this, 2022 can be a massive year on social for you. If you don't, it could be a costly year on social. I think that's what we're saying. And we want you all to thrive and succeed and be triumphant. Thank you very much for watching the three of us. And thank you to our social media royalty for helping navigate all of those questions, Katie, as well. We'll see you again very soon for our next Serious Social. Take care. Thanks for watching.